Hi guys!
Welcome back. So my first video was just an introduction. Today I actually want to get into talking about a movie, and so this is going to be kind of the first video in a series that I want to start. I tried to do all of the movies I wanted to talk about in one video, but I felt like I skipped over too much and I didn't really get enough detail and in-depth as I wanted to. So it's going to be like a 4-part series on 4 movies that I watched in quarantine that I thought were really great, and I'm really excited to talk about them. So the first movie I want to talk about today is the original Stepford Wives that came out in 1975, directed by Brian Forbes. So this movie came out in 75, and it's really known as like a feminist horror, like iconic movie. So when the movie, opens up, starts playing, you start watching it, it opens on Joanne, played by Catherine Ross. She was amazing in this film. So it opens on Joanne, played by Catherine Ross, and her husband, Walter, played by Peter Masterson, and they have 2 kids. And they're driving through the city, getting ready to move to Stepford, Connecticut. So they, drive through the city, they make it to Stepford, they get settled in this really great, big, beautiful house. The introduction, it goes along, whatever. First day there, Walter hears about a gentleman's club, and he's really excited, and he's thinking about joining it. So he asks Joanne, what she thinks of it, and she's like, Walter, you're already gonna join it. I don't know why you're asking. So he joins this gentleman's club. Right out of the gate, once Walter joins this club, he starts acting super weird. First night he comes home from the gentleman's club, he stays up until 4 o'clock in the morning. And Joanne's like, what the heck, Walter? Come to bed. And he's just being a weirdo. And then the gentleman's club hosts their meetings at, each person's house, So they come to Walter and Joanne's house. And Joanne is not very taken with any of them. She thinks they're all very stupid. She tells Walter many times throughout this movie that she thinks he is too intelligent to have the company that he keeps. So, things go along, some time passes, she's hating it, Walter's being weird, and they take a trip to the grocery store. Now, by this time, Joanne has noticed that the women in Stepford are very odd, very centered around their housework and pleasing their husbands, this much of a personality, right? So they're leaving the grocery store, and a little fender bender happens in the parking lot with another woman in a car, and she ends up hitting her head on the steering wheel, and everybody runs over there, runs up to her, asks if she's okay, and Joanne takes note of how odd she's acting, kind of like when a robot glitches, if an animatronic was to get wet or something like that. She started acting really weird, very odd, so they took her away to the hospital. But Joanne notes to Walter that they're driving in the opposite direction of the hospital, and Walter also notes this as very odd. Some more time passes. It's kind of a slow burn movie, but a couple more time passes. They're really trying to get used into the feel of things, and Joanne happens upon her newfound friend Bobby, played by Paula Prentiss. So her and Bobby hit it off right away. They both acknowledge that the other women in Stepford are super weird, and they are just elated at the fact that they're normal. And, they're snacking, drinking, talking, having a really good time. And Bobby also says that her husband is a part of the gentleman's club. Bobby notes that her husband is also a part of the gentleman's club. And so they're like, that's crazy. All the dudes in Stepford are a part of this club. So together they come up with the really good idea that they're going to start a women's club. So they go around door to door to all the women in Stepford, and they're just like, hey chickies, you guys want to do a club? These dudes got their club. Let's be a couple of hens. What's the gossip? How's your hubs? Is he annoying? Mine sucks. What's the deal? And they don't really acknowledge Bobby or Joanne. They're just like, I have to clean today. They don't really acknowledge them until they come across Charmine. And Charmine is played by the gorgeous Tina Louise. She did great in this movie. And Charmine is normal. Now, they have all noticed that they've all lived in Stepford for about 6 months. So they're all still relatively new to the town. So they go to talk to Charmine, and they really start bonding over Charmine's love of tennis. She's a great, big, beautiful tennis court. So Charmaine and Joanne are playing, and Bobby's chilling on the sidelines watching. They're all having a really great time. And they all go inside and they're just talking. And Charmaine thinks it's a really great idea for this women's club. So fast forward a couple of scenes of them getting denied and denied. They finally get all the chicks together for the club. And so they're sitting there and they're just like, okay, does anybody want to go first? Like, let's talk about some stuff, you know, like girls got to stick together. So what do you guys want to talk about? And none of the Stepford wives say anything. They're just chilling like the airheads that they are. And then so Joanne is like, okay, I'll go first. And Joanne goes on to say that she just feels like her husband doesn't really have time for them or their family. Like, work takes priority over everything. And that's really upsetting to her. So then Bobby's like, okay, like, I'll go too. So, you know, we can just really get this started. And Bobby goes on to say that she feels like the only reason her husband picked her was because she looked right. Well-off family, skinny, beautiful. She just fit the bill for what men really looked for in women at this time. Because, you know, this is the 70s. Skinny, rich, shine my boots. Check, put a ring on it. And that obviously upsets Bobby very much. She feels like she's never been in love. So then they're chilling and waiting. You know, they've shared something really personal with the women. And one girl goes, okay, yeah, like, I want to go. And they're really excited. They're like, what? Like, what's up? And she goes, you know what I really love? And they're just like, what? Non-stick cooking spray. And then it's like you jump into an infomercial and they're just, all the women start to join. They're just like, yes, yes, yes. I love non-stick cooking spray. It's so easy to clean. And they're just really hyping up this cooking spray, which is great. But why is that the only thing that's on your mind? So they kind of scrap the women's club. And they don't really understand what's going on or why these women are this way. So through a little bit of snooping, they found out that the same women that are now the Stepford wives, you know, the weirdos, originally were normal when they first moved into the town. And they themselves had a women's club, but it was very quickly like dismantled. And they're trying to figure out why. And one of the women tells them that used to run the club, she goes, you know, it's really not important. It took time away from me and my husband's time. Ever since I stopped leading the club, I've really been able to pleasure my husband in a completely different way. I'm really just more present now. And the chicks are like, okay, what does having friends have to do with placing your husband? But go off. So they think it's really weird. So Charmaine tells the girls that she's going to go on a little vacation with her husband. You know, that's what you do. You go on vacay sometimes. Fun stuff. So when she comes back, Bobby and Joanne notice that her husband has hired workers to completely tear up her tennis court. And this is very startling and a little odd to Bobby and Joanne because she loved playing tennis. It kept her active. You know, she's a stay-at-home wife, and what else is there to do when you're surrounded by a bunch of Stepford wives and you don't have any friends? You play tennis. So they go check on her, and lo and behold, they got her. She's a Stepford wife now. And she is the classic, I just want to take care of my family. Look, I've cleaned my countertops. Look how clean they are. Look how clean my house is.
But aren't you so happy that my house is clean?
And they're just like, wow, what the heck? So they are freaking out. And in the midst of all this going on, late one night, Joanne took her dog on a walk. He got off his leash late one night while Joanne was taking him for a walk. And he runs into this yard of this really big, beautiful mansion, I guess you could say. And it's really lovely. And all of a sudden, there's a security guard, like, out of nowhere. He goes, hey, what are you doing? And she's like, well, I'm just walking my dog. He basically tells her that she needs to leave and that she can't be on this property. And he makes a comment to her that maybe she should walk around closer to her home and she should stay walking with her husband, Walter. And she tells this officer, she goes, well, I moved from the city to, you know, this cute little town in Connecticut so I could be safe and walk by myself, but thank you. And so this really sets her off and is really odd to me. And to her as well, obviously. What is it about this house that nobody can go near? So as Joanne is walking away, a car pulls out. And the car pulling out is 2 members of the gentleman's club that she had met earlier whenever they had a meeting at their house. And one of them is very shaken up and he is unable to drive, so they switch places. Now, Joanne doesn't see this, but we as the viewers do. And mental note, something weird is going on with this house. So, in Joanne's life right now, she got yelled at, basically, told her to get off the property, and her friend is going crazy. Well, the next day, in the next couple days following these incidents, Joanne's dog goes missing. She has now lost one friend, her dog has gone missing, and Walter is getting even weirder. He's being odd, and she's growing very unsettled. Her and Bobby devise this plan to go and get the water tested. And Joanne says, well, my ex-boyfriend is a scientist, and he can actually test the water for us for free. And Joanne tells this really sad story about how she really felt she was in love with her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend. That little anecdote gets told. They go and get the water to be tested, and the results come back and nothing's in the water. So Bobby is obviously very distraught. She doesn't know what's going on, and she doesn't understand what else could be happening, because the only thing that all of these women share in Stepford is, well, they all have the same water, right? It makes sense if you kind of think about it, but it's not the water. It got tested. She's very beside herself, and they tread very cautiously. And so Bobby asked Joanne one day, a couple little bits of the movie later, if she can watch her kids. Their kids are really close. They play together all the time. Bobby and her husband's anniversary is coming up, and they want to go on a little vacation for their anniversary to this really beautiful hotel that it's like tradition. They always go. And Joanne, like, no problem. Great. Well, they watch the kids over the weekend. Bobby comes back, and can you guess what happened? She's a Stepford wife. They got her. So Joanne just freaking spirals. She is freaking out. Her best, closest friend is now a Stepford wife. And she loses it, and she begs Bobby, Bobby, like, what are you going on? Like, you're dressing differently. You look different. Like, your body, you're more, like, voluptuous. You're fuller. Like, you don't even look or sound like yourself anymore. Every ounce of personality that Bobby had is now gone, just like Charmaine and every other woman in Stepford. So, Joanne frantically is driving her vehicle home, causing a stir through all of Stepford, because she's driving like a maniac because she is so freaked out. And she goes to Walter, and she's crying and crying and crying and losing it to Walter and begging Walter that they have to move. They have to get out of there, and they have to leave. They've got Charmaine, they've got Bobby, they're gonna get Joanne. And Walter agrees, but he tells her that she needs to get help because she's acting like a crazy person. Is the woman's paranoia crazy? Is the woman crazy, or somebody making her crazy, right? Whatever. So they agree, and they're going to start looking for a different house. But for the time being, Walter insists that Joanne go see somebody. So Joanne does. She goes to a therapist outside of the town of Stepford. And she is so distraught talking to this therapist, the therapist advises her to get her kids and get out. And she goes, you don't understand. There's not time. And the therapist tells Joanne, you have to make time. Get them. Leave. But the therapist tells Joanne she's going to leave for the weekend, for a couple of days. And Joanne freaks out because she says in that time, they, whoever they is at this moment, will get her, and she will become like every other woman in Stepford. And the therapist tells her, go and get your kids, get a hotel, tell no one where you're going, and I will come to you when I get back, and we can figure out what's going on. So, frantically, Joanne drives back home, busts up in her house, and guess who is not there? Their kids. Walter has sent the children away for the night because he feels like Joanne's mental health is spiraling and that she needs help. She needs a break. Joanne loses her mind even more, and her and Walter get into an altercation. And this altercation causes Joanne to run upstairs and lock the door. And Walter, being Walter, he's like, ugh, good, stay in there. Joanne being Joanne, she does not stay in there. And she breaks out and runs, and the only place she can think of, because the only friend she had at the time before she turned into a Stepford wife was Bobby. So she runs to Bobby's and is freaking out. Bobby, 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 do you have my kids? And she goes, I don't have your kids. I sent my kids off. It's grown folks night. I gotta clean. Insert eye roll. Right? So Joanne is freaking out. She doesn't know where her kids are, and Bobby is being annoying, to say the least, because she's not even acting like a person, and this is really frustrating to Joanne. And so, in order to prove to Bobby that she is no longer herself and maybe not even a person anymore, she takes a knife and whop, stabs Bobby. And lo and behold, Bobby does not bleed. Bobby doesn't bleed. This sends Joanne, even she was spiraling before, and then she had like a manic freak out, and now she's just really losing her marbles. If she had marbles, they're all over the floor at this point. She is losing her mind. She freaks out, and once Bobby gets stabbed, like the woman who got in the car wreck earlier in the movie, she starts glitching, taking coffee cups and dropping them on the floor like a robot, repeating the same things. Like, she is just really freaking out and not acting like a person. So Joanne leaves. Joanne's last resort is to go to the house that she got in trouble at with her, that her dog went into, like, the yard, like the really big, beautiful mansion. So she runs there. And because she just has that, you know, mom intuition, that's where the kids are at. And she busts up in, and it's really, the tone is really set because it's at night, it's storming, and it's cloudy, and it's really dark and turbulent outside. I love when movies do that. They reflect the mood of the main character to the weather outside. Lots of movies do it. I think it's a great filming tactic. It really sets a mood. It's a really great job. So she busts into this house, and as she busts into this house, roll of thunder, boom, and flash of lightning. The whole big house is lit up with lightning, and you hear in the background her children calling for her. So she runs to them, and she panically looks for them. She's busting through the doors. She opens one door where she hears her kids, and lo and behold, there is the leader of the Gentleman's Club, and he has recorded her children's voices calling for her to trap her. And she asks, where are my children? What is going on? What are you doing? And her children, he says, are safe and sound with Charmaine. Oh, forgot about her. And he says it's all gonna be over soon, and she just needs to calm down. Because isn't that what every man tells a frantic woman? Whatever. So she does the opposite, as she should, and busts out the door and is running and looking for a way out. And after a long series of trying to get into rooms, she finally gets into a room, and she opens this door, and in this room is the exact replica of her room in her house. And there is her dog, for one. So they took her dog, and her dog's there. And then looking across the room, there is another version of herself sitting at a vanity. And that version of herself turns and looks at her. And this Joanne is just like the original Joanne, but she is more voluptuous, and her skin just looks a little bit softer, and she just looks just a little bit more perfect. The original Joanne. And this Stepford Joanne eyes are blacked out, which 2020, that was scary. So I couldn't imagine this watching in 1975. It was a great shot. And obviously, Joanne freaks out. Leader of the Gentleman's Club walks in, door shuts, movie cuts to Joanne at the grocery store with all the other women of Stepford, and she is in fact a Stepford wife. They got her. Who is they? The Gentleman's Club, the patriarchy, whatever you want to call it, they got her, and she turned into a Stepford wife. This movie, from start to finish, was amazing. It was a really great movie. It was a really great movie. It really speaks to the tradition of the times, and even here lately still, of what the world and what society really expects of women. Now, this is very relevant in 1975, and I think this was probably a very controversial movie at the time to address the fact that there's more to a woman's life than tending for her family and children, because she is a person outside of the people she's supposed to take care of. The Stepford Wives is also a book. The ending of the book is a little different. I will save you that. You should go off and read it for yourself. It was really a great read. I really enjoyed this movie. I think the message that it sends is still very relevant today. I think it's really important to keep the women in your life in mind. You know what I mean? There is more to being a woman than there is to being a caretaker, and I think this is what this movie is trying to portray, and I think that's incredibly important still today in 2020. This movie is feminist horror icon, and if you were very interested in this movie, I don't want to say they were alike, but Jennifer's Body came out in 2009, and that is my recommendation for you, is to go watch Jennifer's Body. It came out in 2009, and it was before its time. That movie should have been released later. 2009, it got awful reviews. It did not do good at the box office. In the years since it has come out, it is, to me, a classic. You love to see feminism in movies. You love to see triumphant, powerful women in movies. Jennifer's Body really speaks to the Me Too movement and accountability and power that women can inhabit. And it's really great. Watch it. Super gory. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. There will be more to this series to come. I will be posting next Saturday for part 2. And in that video, we will be covering Hereditary, directed by Ari Aster.